Hello everyone, Luke Smith here, and welcome to another quickie reading, Saturday the 10th of December. Let's do this one. Again, it's another one that I thought I did, but it turns out I haven't. The WCT. Starting with a couple of quotes. I am now one of the most powerful people in the CWC sphere. Sadly, I had to get rid of a few questionable people to get myself to where I am today. And I was sadly doxed. Well, that's what happens if you try and help Chris. WCT on your status in the CWC sphere. As powerful as I've recently become lately, it is also best to keep myself in check, or else I will end up using said powers for evil, like Bismuth. Now that is WCT talking about his power while worried about abusing it. So we're going to read this and then we're going to read the information about him. Sean Walker, most commonly known as the Wildcat, WCT, and CPU Onyx Heart, also known as the Psychic Elspion, Neko Onyx, and plenty of other pseudonyms, is a former Watchmen member and amateur documentarian who made documentaries on dark or edgy topics. He is well described as one of the most powerful people in the CWC sphere. He boasted that he was proud about his eventual feature in the Gino Samuels documentary series, claiming himself to be one of the final protagonists. He also made a few comments on where he had compared himself to Null, or brought up his supposed influence on the CWC sphere. The WCT, there you go, said it first off then, even had one of his pseudonyms being Connor, Josh's middle name. WCT had a conflict with Nort, Kyle and MKR, in which Nort had doxed WCT on Kiwi Farms for declining to share his Kiwi Farms account. Kyle and MKR had refused to believe Nort has done so. WCT created another Discord group, White Knights of CWC, modelling it after the previous Watchmen's group run by Nort and Kyle, The Place. As a Watchman, WCT was concerned with protecting Chris from malicious individuals. In 2019, he was involved with Chris releases a statement regarding Jacob Sockness, an audio recording Chris released to Twitter in order to discourage Jacob Sockness from coming to his house. 2 years later, WCT would again try to intervene against Sockness' plan to meet Chris at Everfree Northwest, although Chris's arrest for incest would cause him to miss the convention. Some of WCT's actions garnered controversy. He, like several other Watchmen, were enablers to Chris's delusions as they was play along to his fantasies. In WCT's case, he played along with Chris's fantasies over the shooter Randy Stair, who was a subject of a documentary series of WCT's own, being a guardian figure. After being doxed by Nort, WCT had collaborated with Isabella Yankee to dox Nort back. Not the best idea in the world. During the wake of the incest scandal, WCT questioned Bella about her involvement in the incest call. He was then tricked by her into believing her fabricated BDSM texts were real and that the suitress also had them in her possession. And he then spread the text to the Kiwi Farms while claiming that the suitress as his sole source and partially revealing her identity as well. In addition, WCT's former associate, MKR Knight V, spread a rumour about him that he probably wants Chris to kill himself in retaliation to WCT convicting Chris to leave her group's Discord server. These actions and circumstances would would result in him receiving considerable flack, ultimately causing him to retreat from the internet and go into hiding. So, name Sean Walker, also known as the Wildcat, WCT, Yosemite Cat, Logan, and all them other fucking names that he has. Gender male, also known for helping Chris record an audio clip telling Sockness to stay away, convincing Chris to cut ties with the Play's Discord server and 3 of its members, and having private conversations with him, enabling delusions of Chris regarding Randy Stair, creating what Knights of CWC server, being the tentative 4th land coup and only to be having it rejected by Chris, hosting the regarding Chris group chat question to Bella. Race white, American occupation, founder and leader of Knights of CWC, amateur documentarian, sagas, Jacob, secret shipfic, watchman and incest. As a watchman, becoming a watchman, WCT, an amateur documentarian, was fascinated by Lino Samuels' Chris Clan Comprehensive History series in early to mid 2018 and archived the series on his YouTube channel, the WCT, when the original history was terminated by YouTube. According to Knott, WCT joined the CWC Rebellion server, where he made friends with a user named Smoky Chris, and that the aspiring documentarians met in Gino Samuels' Discord server sometime in 2019. Knott had also claimed that he met WCT in Gino Samuels' server when Knott also hung out with Joseph Draft, director of CWC vs. the World, and that them two were both early Watchmen. He later joined the Watchmen, where he mainly archived calls involving Chris while maintaining a YouTube channel that posted Chris-centric content, which had since been privated. In February 2021, he attempted to become the 4th person behind the role of Lanku, an OC created by the Watchmen, but it was rejected by Chris, who still preferred his predecessor. Internal conflicts. On Christmas Eve of 2020, Chris has mentioned concerns about WCT being banned from the place, alleging it was due to political jokes he made. Kyle replies that he is unsure about unbanning him and complains about the WCT leaking information. When Chris responds that WCT hadn't been leaking anything, Knott and Kyle responding that he doesn't leak on purpose, with Knott claiming that WCT had hinted at the existence of the place server. WCT was docked on Cal in 2019 on a local farm. In early June 2021, WCT docks was reposted on Kiwi Farms below by fellow Watchman and group leader Knott, also known as Bismuth. When WCT confronted Knott in a voice chat, Knott denied the allegation and threatened to further dox WCT in an attempt to silence him. WCT explained the events to Chris himself, who believed WCT's evidence and cut ties with Knott over it. Knott had eventually confirmed his doxing of WCT on the 30th of August 2021 on an Onion Farms message, and again on the 29th of November 2021 while editing his Quickie page. Knott has also stated in the edit that the WCT accusing him of sending strikes on his videos would further justify the decision to dox him after receiving strikes for his videos. WCT would then create a new channel to host his content, Yosemite Cat. Shortly after, WCT was banned from the place, the Watchman Discord server. In response, Chris left the server himself. In WCT's own words, Chris saw my banning as a signal for him that my suspicions about Bismuth and the others were correct. The Praetor group, who had also been in the server, left it as well following Chris's departure. WCT had claimed in a later post to an interviewee that he decided to take down the group as a result of not doxing him. Chris with him in order to punish other members in the group. MKR later jumped to several baseless conclusions over the matter and circulated several rumours. In late June, she tagged Chris's Twitter and posted, "Have fun getting fucked over by WCT and Praetor," accusing WCT of having sinister motives, including probably wanting Chris to kill himself in a similar matter to Randy Stair. WCT created a successor group and invited in Chris and several of the Watchmen who had been in the place, tilting his group Knights of CWC. There he served as Watchman's third leader, although he was also unsure about putting the group under a Watchman moniker. As a leader, WCT sought to take a less aggressive approach to other Chris orbiters than Nort had, stating to Helena that he would give anyone who befriends Chris a chance until it becomes clear to me that they have awful intentions. WCT gave an interview on the Quickie explaining his side of the story. Interactions with Chris. Chris had recent failings have helped the Quickie gather more information on the article. This new information can be found in the following sources. We won't bother with that. Main article, WCT DMs. We're not going to bother with that. I just want to read this one. Following his breakup from other Watchmen members, WCT had a series of private conversations with Chris. I'm just see how I'm doing there. WCT was one of the people trying to discourage Chris from his plan to tase his magic stones to start the dimensional merge. He also expressed concern over Chris's mental health when Chris uploaded direct message to Hasbro, My Little Pony Gen 5 is cancelled. That was his last video, I believe. In a video in which an upset Chris ranted about My Little Pony in the background, revealing several punched holes in the wall. WCT reached out to Chris to calm him down and asked Chris to talk things out instead of hurting himself. When asked by WCT what happened to the wall, Chris claimed that the damage had occurred in the past over trying to physically break the Iron Curtain between dimensions. Chris has provided a tarot reading towards MKR WCT. Randy Stair Delusions. There's a main article about that. I've no idea who he is, by the way. WCT was a regular contributor to the wiki dedicated to the documentation of Randy Stair, who infamously killed 3 people and then killing himself after losing his mind, having held his own obsession with Stair since at least July 2018, according to a wiki page he made about himself. WCT produced a YouTube documentary on Stair in November 2020. Chris found the documentary after looking through a playlist on WCT's channel and took an interest in Stair's story, particularly the aspects involving Stair's belief in fictional characters existing in their alternate dimension. Chris recorded an audio file to help Stair get a post-stealth death message out and giving the file to WCT. In conversations with WCT, Chris occasionally role-played that Randy Stair was a guardian figure, and WCT briefly played along. On the 14th of July 2021, WCT tried to help Chris avoid Jacob Sockness at the upcoming Everything Northwest convention by asking him to record another version of Chris releases a statement regarding Jacob Sockness. During their discussion, Chris coped with the issue of Sockness by role-playing that Randy Stair would be defeating Sockness with WCT's help. So we got that message. Chris says, Ember just came to me with a message in regard to Sockness. Randy and the Ghost Squad are working to break through the horde of demons around his apartment building. In the present energy shift, there is a potential boost going to Sockness, but there is a counter, and it involves you, Sean. To which WCT, seemingly confusing Sockness for naught, replied, with Andrew and Ember's help, I will defeat Bismarck for good and ensure that he doesn't hurt another innocent again. Everything Northwest. In June 2021, Jacob Sockness declared that he had plans to attend Everything Northwest in disguise to meet Chris. WCT alerted Chris to Sockness's statements. On the 13th of July that year, Chris brought up Bella to WCT, telling WCT that he would be accompanying him to Everything Northwest. On the 19th of June, Chris invited Bella, as well as the Sutress, who also was set to meet Chris at the convention, into the Knights of CWC, a Watchman splinter group headed by WCT, and the group discussed plans to protect Chris from Sockness. Bella would claim that she would be a bodyguard to Chris. That little weasel would not be a good bodyguard. On the 19th of July, Bella invited WCT, the Sutress, and Chris to her chess group. Number 15, Discord server. WCT discussed his conflict with Nort, Kyle and MKR, and told Bella that he had been working with a former Kiwi farmers to bring down the Watchman, and asked Bella to assist him in doxing Nort, calling him an evil man. Through Bella's help, WCT was able to dox Nort's mother. An innocent bystander, by the way. The incest scandal. On the 2nd of July 2021, Chris had confessed with WCT about having an affair with a woman older than him, but did not reveal to him that it was occurred with his own mother. On the 28th of July, Chris would admit to Bella that he was in the middle of an incestuous relationship with his mother. WCT had created a group chat regarding Chris, where he and selected other Chris Orbiters would question Bella on what was happening. Bella gave the files to the Sutress, and both would leak Chris's statement in the following days. Even after the leak, Chris was still willing to talk to Bella. It took both Null and WCT telling him he shouldn't to make Chris reconsider and cut ties with Bella. Targeted by the Halal server. In August 2021, MKR Night V and Nort joined the Halal server. There, Night V in particular spread vicious rumours about the WCT, such as accusing him of plotting to have Chris killed. That's not a very good thing to accuse someone of, by the way. Interview. The WCT was interviewed over Discord about a Watchman breakup on the 11th of July 2021. The WCT messages are in blue and the interviewers are in green. So, hi, we're reading all this stuff by the way now. Hi, someone told me you're the WCT. If it's okay with you, I'd like to ask you some questions about the Watchman breakup for the quickie. and he replies with "Hi there," and yes, by all means ask said questions. Interviewer says the initial conflict seems to be between you and Bismouth, that Bismouth doxed you. How did it grow to break up in the Watchman's group? And Sean says, after I concluded that it was Bismouth that the response was responsible for the doxing, I made the choice to contact Night V, or Megan for some you might know her as, and showed her a lot of screenshots in the DMs that compared to the typing style of his old Kiwi Farms accounts to the one he used to dox me, which was Nightmare. I recall telling her that I was 90% sure it was him, but in spite of the evidence I had presented to her at the time, she didn't believe me, and during her RVC on the 21st of June, she and Kyle was not convinced. They originally thought it was someone who I angered in the past, but knowing what Nightmare account was up to at the time, I knew it was him. How did Chris learn from the dispute? Not long after VC, I decided I would contact him myself. So with the help of a former watchman who had his phone number, I was able to get in contact with him on the 25th of June. And there I had a 40-minute talk with him that first started off as any conversation I'd normally have with him until I was comfortable enough to tell him the details. I wonder if there's an audio recording of that. I bet you didn't record that. Did you show Chris the same evidence you did to Vivian Knight G? Or MKR Knight G? When I was talking to MKR, I didn't show as much evidence as at the time, since the investigation was still going. And compared to what I have shared with Chris, I shared less with MKR. Not because I don't trust her, it was because there was not enough information available at the time, and that I ended up showing Chris was a combination of Kiwi Farms posts and VCs that I had with the rest of the group. How did Chris react to it? It took Chris a while to process it. With each screenshot, he began to believe that my claims were true, and that they were both going after VC. He noticed how Bismouth was getting really defensive, and that he was clearly lying to me. Especially when I told Bismouth that Josh Null claimed to be hit to me that him and Nightmare were the same person, and not 3 to 4 seconds of silence on his part was something that helped convince Chris that I was in the right. He also noticed how hostile Bismouth was getting towards me as well, especially when I kept on asking him if he doxed me or not. Chris saw this as a red flag. Did Chris cut ties with Bismouth? From what I know, yes he did. What happened between Chris and Night V? MKR's tweets indicate that they had a falling out. Is it related to the Watchman breakup? And he responded, yes it is. Megan was upset that Chris had sided with me in regards to what happened. How does Prater fit into all this? Night V said in a tweet that you were teamed up with them. Prater had nothing to do with what happened. It's just when they got word from Chris that he had left the server, they followed. It's like a fucking dog following its owner, isn't it? So it makes sense on MKR's part to accuse me of not working for them because we either got banned or left the place at the same time. It's a strange coincidence, yes, but this is a zero contract between me and Caden. What server does Chris leave? The Watchman Place, as some of you might have heard on the quickie. The Watchman's Place. Why did he leave it? When he got word that I was banned from the server, by Kyle that is, he saw this as a green light to leave himself. So essentially I saw my banning as a signal that my suspicions about Bismouth and others were convinced. Are you still in contact with Chris? At this moment of time, no. We went our separate ways not long after the Watchman has broken up, and I believe it is the best for both me and him. And I'd rather not, nor he wants to be in touch with me. Still is completely up to him. But I would not be too surprised if he has already moved on by this point, and I respect whatever path he goes moving forward. Forget to ask earlier, but what is your motivation for informing Chris of the conflict between you and Bismouth and all that lot? I was running out of options on what to do. When MKR and Kyle didn't believe my claims, I felt I had no choice but to inform Chris on what happened. It was a very risky move on my part to do that, but I don't regret telling him. That's all the questions I have. Thank you for answering. Is there anything more you want to add? I just want to let people know that Chris is now a free man with nobody to dictate his actions, and for his sake it needs to remain that way. Thanks again. I'll look to getting this conversation on the quickie. Do you want your username and avatar censored? Yes. And these are the screen caps of that conversation right there. Conclusion. With his last remaining hours of freedom, Chris chose to send his final known online message to WCT, informing him that his pets were being taken care of. Within a few hours, Chris was taken into custody, in which WCT claimed to feel a sense of pain watching. On the 13th of September 2021, WCT was contacted by MKR on the Discord for the first time since the fall of the Watchman, although the conversation WCT lamented on his situation, calling himself a failure for not recognising the signs of Chris and Barb's incestuous relationship, as well as Bella's manipulation, though he admitted caused him to contemplate suicide. Nevertheless, he insisted that he had no regrets and claimed everything was meant to be. He theorised and repeated multiple times throughout the conversation that the kiwi farms would be defunct within the next couple of years. No doubt wishful thinking on his part. WCT's hatred of Bismouth showed no signs of having subsided. At one point, he takes a page out of Chris's book and threatens to sue and call the police on the fellow Watchman member. Other proposed victims of his legal wrath included Null and a prominent Quickie admin, though the WCT recognised these actions would be likely to be all for naught. In the Gale letter 18th of January 2022, Chris mentioned that he wished to get back in contact with Wildcat, presumably referring to one of the WCT's pseudonyms. It remains to be seen if WCT has plans for when, if ever, Chris gets out of jail, but it's likely his involvement in Chris's life is over. See also all that lot. Got some notes here. Blah blah blah. All the stuff to read. Anyway, that has been it. Kept down to 30 minutes, so that's handy. It's a bit of useful information. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little reading. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and also you can support me by the information on screen. Tomorrow we'll have a weekly recap, and we'll see you then. So until then, see you guys.